What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so let's talk about this. Okay, this is a point that some people like to make when it comes to the GOAT debate. And to be honest with you, I think this is just a convenient excuse to try to explain away LeBron James's losing finals record as opposed to Michael Jordan's 6-0 finals record. And basically, it's to shift the credit of success for the championship run from the players on the court to the coach. In particular, it's to shift the credit for the Chicago Bulls to Phil Jackson. Because one of the constants of the championship run, other than Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, is Phil Jackson. As opposed to LeBron James, he's been successful as far as winning a title with three different organizations: the Miami Heat, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Los Angeles Lakers. Therefore, it was not one particular coach in which he won championships. In their eyes, LeBron fans, LeBron is the constant. Therefore, it is not about necessarily Michael Jordan being more successful or better per se. It's that Jordan is the beneficiary of playing under one of the greatest coaches, if not the greatest coach of all time, in Phil Jackson, whereas LeBron James rises above the system. He is the unguardable and supreme athlete, the best basketball player of all time, who transcends, guardability. Let's put it like that, right? Okay, this is my problem with that. Let's not act like LeBron James has not played under coaches that are Hall of Fame worthy. Mike Brown is a two-time NBA Coach of the Year. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Mike Brown has probably coached the better of 2 decades in the NBA. Now, there have been some years he's been assistant coach. There might have been a couple of years he was out of the league. But he's been one of the best coaches of the past 20 years. There's no doubt about it that Eric Spoelstra will be a Hall of Fame coach when all is said and done. There's some evidence to suggest, considering how young Tyronn Lue is still, I think he's only in his late 40s or possibly 50s. So it's relatively young for a coach. More than likely has many, many years left to being a head coach. He may be on a Hall of Fame trajectory as a head coach. So what I'm getting at is, let's not act like LeBron James has been, coached by some schmucks. He's been coached by some great, great coaches. And the problem is, when you make this comparison, you act like as if LeBron James hasn't had advantages that Michael Jordan has not enjoyed. For instance, the guy has played with a plethora of Hall of Fame talent that Michael Jordan was blessed with. So even if LeBron wasn't, quote unquote, coached by a coach on Phil Jackson's level as far as individual success. Management isn't out there on the court busting their ass. The coach isn't out there on the floor busting his ass. Even Shaq said, in his opinion, that a championship team, an all-time great team, especially a veteran club, literally could win with no coach out there on the floor. Because they have the championship experience. They could communicate with one another and not necessarily even need a coach. So let's not overinflate. Coaches are important, especially for young developing players. But let's not act like Michael Jordan's looking at the sideline, trying to figure out what he needed to do in Game 6 of the 1998 Finals, when he knew it was all on his shoulders, when Scottie Pippen all but gone, and all the other Bulls mentally fatigued and checked out. And let's not overinflate Phil Jackson's connection with the triangle offense. Phil Jackson did not create the triangle offense. Tex Winter is the one who more or less created the triangle offense. Although there was a prototype version of it that he learned from his college coach when he was a kid or when he was younger. But Tex Winter was the innovator of the triangle offense. Tex Winter was with the Chicago Bulls organization before Phil Jackson. Tex Winter had been an assistant under Stan Albeck. He wanted Stan Albeck to implement the triangle offense. He did not want to do it. Then Doug Collins became the head coach, and he was resistant to using triangle offense. He thought it was stupid. It was Phil Jackson who really had no noticeable, coaching experience before he was signed to the Chicago Bulls as an assistant to Doug Collins. I think he was coaching in some foreign league, basketball league, Puerto Rico or something like that, Costa Rica, I forget. He was not some Hall of Fame coach. He was some hippie, some ex-hippie, weed smoking, philosophy spewing, former NBA player who, I believe, when he was signed to the Chicago Bulls as an assistant, he had a beard and a Hawaiian shirt on. This guy really was not the same Phil Jackson that we see from the 90s with the suits on and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Phil was elevated by a triangle offense, which was not his invention. That was Tex Winter. And while it was very effective and while it was very successful, the triangle offense, it was a very difficult system to learn, and it took getting used to. But once it was implemented, and once it did show that it was very successful in elevating the players around Michael Jordan, because let's not act like Jordan, unlike LeBron, was playing with all these all-time great players. Like, he didn't have an Anthony Davis. He never played with a player on Anthony Davis's level. He never played with a player on Luka Doncic's level. He never played with a guy on Kyrie Irving's level or Kevin Love's level or Chris Love or Dwayne Wade. He's never played with guys of that caliber. So anything that would elevate players like Judd Bushler and Steve Kerr and Luke Longley and Bill Winnington and Scott Burrell and, Rusty LaRue. I mean, come on, what are we doing here? Anything that would elevate these guys to make them weapons and would open things up enough for them to operate and do certain things, the things that they were good at, the one skill set that they have, then all the better for. Only thing about it is the triangle offense, you need at least one, possibly two superstars. The Bulls had that in Pippen and Jordan. But they also had to be able to be stars that would be willing to give up the basketball. And that's why the triangle offense would never worked with LeBron James because he is the system. He has to have the basketball in his hands for the most part to be effective, especially when he was younger, as we saw in the 2011 NBA Finals when he failed epically. You know, they had to work things out, and Wade had to watch a lot of footage of players playing off the ball, like Michael Jordan, for instance, and Kobe. He had to watch guys being able to cut to the basket. He had to see how these guys free themselves up and still be effective basketball players because Wade himself was used to playing with the ball in his hands. But he sacrificed, which is something that LeBron James never really had to do ever in his career, even going to year 23, whereas Michael Jordan sacrificed his numbers. Sure, Michael Jordan still averaged around 29 points a game, or so, 30 points a game after the triangle was implemented. But before that, Jordan was averaging 33 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. He was putting up LeBron James numbers. He was leading the league in scoring with absurd numbers. But it wasn't enough because, unlike LeBron, he didn't have a super team. So let's put all this into perspective here. We got to put all this into perspective. Also, without Michael Jordan, because I want to focus on Mike here, but I'm going to talk about Kobe too. Without Kobe Bean Bryant and without Michael Jordan, well, really without Michael Jordan, let's go there. What did Phil Jackson do? Lose in the semifinals to the New York Knicks. So the very next year, with a faded Jordan, they lost in the semis. So it's not like without Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson was still leading the Bulls to deep playoff runs. Look, no matter how great a coach is, that coach still needs talent on the floor to be successful. Red Auerbach is considered by many the greatest coach of all time. But when Red Auerbach retired, Bill Russell became the player coach. And guess what? They still wound up winning 2 championships in a 3-year span. So, you know, Pat Riley is one of the greatest coaches of all time. But with much of the Showtime Lakers nucleus still playing, Mike Dunleavy Jr. replaces Pat Riley, and what happens? In 91, they still go to the NBA Finals. So no matter how great a coach is, man, if you don't have that talent there, if Shaq is gone, if you're playing with on the worst roster in Lakers history like Kobe did in 2006, or if you're Michael Jordan, you're playing one of the worst franchises of all time in the Wizards in 2002 and 2003, you're not going to win anything. But I tell you, I said the other day, even Jordan playing with the Wizards 20 years ago, it was more exciting as a Wizard fan to watch Jordan play then and the team play than it has been the last 45 years. So, yeah, I'm like this. When it comes to Phil Jackson, Phil is a tremendous coach, man. But without the players in the right situation, a great coach can only do but so much. And the way I hear it, the media make it seem like JJ Redick is online with a Phil Jackson. You know, that's the way they keep spinning it. So JJ Redick, or JJ Rednick, as I put it, he's right on par. He's the brain. He's the Einstein. He's the Galileo of coaches. So what are we doing here? Man, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.